Whoa!
Hi, I'm Bob Schrupp, physical therapist,
Brad Heineck, physical
and
therapist.
together we are the most famous physical therapists on the internet.
In our opinion, of course.
Brad, you just went to a course and you want to talk about 3 different approaches to hip surgery.
Right, hip replacements in specific, not just the surgery, but if you have an arthritic hip, it's worn out and the doctor says, I think you're a good candidate for a hip replacement, a total hip replacement, which means they're going to replace, here we've got our hip right here, our spine, and here's the hip joint. And if it's a total hip replacement, they're actually going to replace the ball. And to do that, they have to take the ball right out of the socket and replace that, and they replace the socket as well. So that's a total hip replacement. Sometimes they only replace half of it, like just the ball they can replace. And there's a number of options of resurfacing, but I'm not going to get into that too much. What I do want to talk about is the 3 primary ways that they actually cut into you to get to the hip.
And we should say right away, Brad, we aren't surgeons, are we?
We are not surgeons.
I've never done any surgeries myself.
I hope not. But this is give you a good general idea of how they do enter and the basic concepts of what they do to do that. So there's 3 approaches. There's the anterior approach, which means in the front. They actually come in the front.
Anterior means front.
Right? And, they have you laid down on your back. So here, if this was a person here, they're not going to use a pin to cut the person open, but they'll do the proper equipment, and they'll go in here and they'll cut here, which is right where your belt line, or right where your pocket is here, and they'll open up here, okay? Now the big disadvantage to this is information I got from the course. Again, we're not surgeons, but you cannot get in. You open the incision is smaller, and it's harder to get in there to work on what you're working. The big advantage of it is there's no hip precautions afterwards.
Oh, really? That's huge then.
Right. And it's because there's no injury to any of the muscles, the supporting tissues back here that hold the hip in solid. So that's a big thing. As a matter of fact, back in the 50s, they did it anterior. That's how they started, but they had so much problems with it, they eventually went to the other two.
So how often do they do it now, do you know?
It's getting more popular, and I don't remember the stats, but it's not the most popular yet.
And we've done a whole video on hip precautions, on the things you can't do after surgery, and there's quite a few, and so that would be a big deal if you would have to do those.
Now let's go to the second one, is the anterolateral. That's kind of going through the side here.
Anterior means front, lateral means side, so it's kind of between the front and the side, is what you're saying, right, Brad?
Right. And with that, they have problems evidently with the muscle up here, the abductor muscle.
Sure.
The anterior, where it connects, they have to cut that apart. They get in here. And they also have to cut out some of the muscles from the bone to open it up.
Okay.
But they have more room. They can open it up wider here. And then thirdly is the posterior, where you're laying on your stomach.
Posterior means back.
On the back side. So that's where you get this incision right back here. So it's an incision here, here, or back here, the 3 ways. And this one is, they can really open it up a lot, get a good visual, get their hands in there to work, and replace things easier. But when they sew you back up, they are, that's where the hip precautions come in, because you can't bend forward, you can't rotate your leg in, and you can't cross your legs, because where they cut and sewed you back up, those tissues can separate back out, and the hip can
So this is a good discussion you should have with your surgeon prior to the surgery. Which way are you going in? What does that mean for me? What does that entail?
Exactly. So, if they're talking about hip precautions, and you say, geez, I'd like to do something without hip precautions, usually the way they made it sound, a surgeon either does posterior or they don't jump around. They have their favorite way to do it.
And that's a good way to maybe even choose your surgeon, depending on what you want to do.
You better believe it. So it's very interesting how they can get in and do the things they do with these bones. But hip surgeries are very common, and they're not too bad for rehab.
So Brad, I would say that we're a fountain of knowledge for people who are older and going through the trials and tribulations of the older years. So if you want to subscribe to us, we're going to give you great information on how to stay healthy and fit and pain-free, and how to do surgery. And maybe we should do a surgery sometime, Brad, just for the fun of it.
Why not? Maybe we could.
We'll start on animals and work our way up.
Yeah, we better watch out there, Bob.
Yeah.
Take care.